Welcome, friends. Today we are going to discuss basic statistics. It is useful for the students or for the practitioners who would like to conduct design of experiments or Taguchi robust design. These sort of experiments or design considerations actually require some basic statistical knowledge. So today we will discuss some basic or fundamental concepts of statistics, but we will not go into very much detail, or we will not go into the derivation related part. We will just have a look at the fundamental concepts so that we can understand the experimental designs or how to conduct design of experiments or Taguchi robust design, etc. So first, this is average. What is average? Average represents a value that would best represent a sample. There are three ways to represent the average. Mean, it is computed by adding all the values and then dividing the sum by the number of quantities in the set. So we know, and then median. Median is the middle value in the list of the numbers. Mode is the value that occurs most often. If no number in the list is repeated, then there is no mode for the list. Very often we say average or mean, but actually average and mean are not same. Average could be mean, median, or mode, but generally speaking, we try to say mean whenever we speak or we talk about average. We try to discuss about mean. So we know what is mean value, what is median, the middle value in the list of a number, the mode. It also we know that the value that occurs most often. And then variance. We also know the formula of the variance. It measures the average degree to which each point differs from the mean. Then standard deviation. It is a measure of how spread out the numbers are. It is the square root of the variance in order to restore the original limit of the measure. Because variance, it is given by sigma square for the population variance, and the sample variance, it is given as S. Okay. So standard deviation is root under variance, or variance is square of standard deviation, and we do the square root in order to restore the original unit of measure, because in variance it is the unit square actually. And here, if we want to discuss about standard deviation, there two terms come. One is population and another is sample. Population means, suppose we live in India. Now, if we want to conduct some survey, then it is not possible to conduct the survey or to collect data from all the citizens or all the people of India. So what we do, we collect sample, we collect data from some people for our survey. So population means the entire circle, each if there is a circle or if there is an area, and if we take data from all individuals, then the circle will be treated as a population. But if we consider only some individuals among the entire population or among all the members, then that is known as sample. So now the definition of probability, it is a numerical description of how likely an event is to occur. Okay, so you know already what is probability. Now, probability is a number between 0 and 1, where roughly speaking 0 indicates impossibility and 1 indicates certainty. The higher the probability of an event, the more likely it is that the event will occur. You already have idea about probability, so I'm not discussing it further. Now distribution. What is distribution? The distribution of a statistical data set or a population is a listing or function showing all the possible values or intervals of the data and how often they occur. So it is basically a statistical data set which represents all possible values of the outcomes. Okay. What is probability distribution? It describes what we think the probability of each outcome is. For example, flipping a fair coin has two outcomes. It lands heads or tails. Before the flip, we believe there is 1 in 2 chance. It means 50% probability of heads and 50% probability for tails. So that's a probability distribution over 2 outcomes of the flip, and which is known as Bernoulli distribution. This kind of distribution is known as Bernoulli distribution. Some distributions are discrete over outcomes that must be integer, like 1 or 6. For example, outcome of a dice. So one, it could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, some integer value. So this kind of distribution are discrete in nature. In this case, along y-axis, we represent the frequency of the outcomes. Some distributions are continuous that can take on any real numeric value like minus 1.32 or 0.005, anything. Suppose the height of the group of students. So it can have any value between, suppose if you consider 20, somebody's height is 174 centimeter and somebody's height is 175 centimeter, it can take 170, it can be 174.23 or 174.25, it can take any value between this 174 and 170. So these appear as dense curve, where its areas under sections of the curve that give probabilities. So the sums of the heights of lines and areas under the curves are always 1. Here along y-axis we represent probability density. Okay, we will see it later on. Then probability density function, or PDF, it is a function that defines a probability distribution. That means the likelihood of an outcome for a continuous random variable as opposed to a discrete variable. So in case of continuous random variable, you will find the probability probability density function. The distribution curve never touches the x-axis because it is the curve of the set of observations, and each observation has some likelihood, and the likelihood can never be zero rational. What is likelihood? We will also discuss later. Now, what is regression analysis? It is a statistical procedure used to find relationships among a set of variables. We will also discuss this thing. Now, this is what we want to see. This is actually the difference between probability and likelihood. Here we can also discuss about likelihood. So we know that probability is the percentage that a success occur. For example, we do the binomial experiment by tossing a coin. We suppose that the event that we get the face of coin in success, so the probability of success now is 0.5, because the probability of face and back of a coin is equal. 0.5 is the probability of a success. Now, likelihood is actually the conditional probability. The same example, we toss the coin 10 times and we suppose that we get 7 success, show the face, and 3 fail, show the back. The likelihood is calculated for binomial distribution. It can be vary dependent on the distributions. So if you calculate the likelihood, you will get the value of 0.1171. 10 combination 10 is the total time. We are doing it for 10 times. 7 times we are getting the success into 0.5 to the power 7 into 1 minus 0.5. The other probability, so 0.5 is the probability for 7 times success, and the probability of failure 1 minus 0.5 equal probability into to the power 3. So 3 is the 3 times we are having the failure. So this value, actually this formula is used for calculating the likelihood. So the meaning is that 0.1171 is the probability that the above event will happen by knowing that the probability of one success is 0.5. Above event will happen means got 7 successes out of 10 times. So likelihood is the conditional probability of an event or a set of success occur by knowing the probability of a success occur. But probability is just the percentage that a success occur. So you can understand that likelihood is also a probability, but it is conditional probability where you are calculating the probability subject to some specific conditions, some specified conditions. Now, this is normal distribution. Many continuous variables follow a normal distribution, and it plays a special role in the statistical tests we are interested in. The x-axis represents the values of a particular variable. The y-axis represents the proportion of members of the population that have each value of the variable. That means the probability density that represents. The area under the curve represents probability. It means area under the curve between two values on the x-axis represents the probability of an individual having a value in that particular range. For example, if this and this is take the curve under some two specified range, then it will give you the probability that some outcome will occur within that particular range. So in this case, mean and standard deviation tell you the basic features of a distribution. Mean and standard deviation, whenever we represent some distribution, we mention about mean and standard deviation because mean and standard deviation tell you the basic features of a distribution. Mean is equal to average value of all members of the group, and standard deviation measure of how much the values of individual members vary in relation to the mean. The normal distribution is symmetrical about the mean. You can see that that's symmetrical. And 68% of the normal distribution lies within one standard deviation of the mean. Within one standard deviation, 68% of the value lie under that particular curve, under the normal distribution curve within one standard deviation. So in case of normal distribution, actually mean, median and mode all are same. Normal distribution is the definition of normal distribution. You can put it like this: normal distribution is a continuous probability distribution wherein most of the values of a data set lie in the middle of the range and the rest taper off symmetrically toward either extreme. The normal distribution is sometimes informally called the bell curve because it looks like bell. However, many other distributions are also bell-shaped. The probability density of the normal distribution is given by fx function of x when the mu and sigma square, that means the mean and the variance are given, is equal to 1 by root under 2 pi sigma square into e to the power minus x minus mu whole square divided by 2 sigma square. So given the value of x, you can calculate the function of x, you can calculate y. So x is given, so you can obviously calculate the value of y. Okay, and this curve is represented, this curve follows this particular curve. Okay, and this is the case of Z distribution, which is also called the standard normal distribution. That means if you put mu is equal to 0 and sigma is equal to 1, if you are putting this because you want to standardize the normal distribution, then the expression that you get, it's like this. So it basically represents Z distribution. So this is, it actually gives you the Z distribution. So if you integrate the Z distribution within a specific range, you will obviously get the value of the probability. So now this is the relationship between variables. So we discussed about what is the regression analysis. Just in this slide, we gave a definition. It is a statistical procedure used to find relationships among a set of variables. So it is a kind of regression. It is a regression analysis. Regression analysis can be classified as simple linear regression and also multiple linear regression. This is the case of simple linear regression. You can see that the expression is given like this. This is yi is equal to beta 0 plus beta 1 xi plus error term. So this is the dependent variable or response variable. This is a constant term. It is actually the intercept. And beta 1, you know that you know the equation of a straight line, y is equal to mx plus c. So it's very similar to that. And this is the population slope beta 1, or this is the coefficient term. And xi, this is your independent or explanatory variable, and this is your error term. So suppose in a problem, you are a vet epidemiologist for the county cooperative, you gathered the following data. So the food that the animal is taking or the cow is taking, and the milk yield, that means the milk that the cow is giving. So you would like to find out what is the relationship between cow's food intake and milk yield. So milk yield is the dependent variable y, and food intake, this is x, this is independent variable. So you want to establish the relationship between these two variables. So using the concept of, there are some formula to estimate the beta 0 and beta 1. So using those formula, you can estimate the relationship between these variables. Now, this is the case of simple linear regression. There is also multiple linear regression. In case of multiple linear regression, you have more than one predictors. That means there is only one response variable, but there will be more than one independent variables. Like this, EY is equal to alpha plus beta 1 into X plus beta 2 into W plus beta 3 into Z. So X, W, Z, more than one independent variables you are getting. So this is known as multiple linear regression. And there are also formula or the process or method by means of which you can also estimate these multiple coefficients with like beta 1, beta 2, beta 3 and alpha. These you can estimate. Now R squared. What is R squared? It is very often you would like to find out. It is a statistical measure that represents the proportion of the variance for a dependent variable that is explained by an independent variable or variables in a regression model. So in a regression model, note R is called correlation coefficient, which tells you the strength of linear association between X and Y, whereas R square is called coefficient of determination. So R is basically correlation coefficient, which depicts the strength of the linear association between X and Y. Okay. And here one thing is very important to notice, that we are considering that they have linear relationship, but these variables may not have linear relationship. But in most of the cases, it is found that the the response variables that we find, that we have, and the independent variables that we have, those are the linear relationships. Because of this reason, we most of the time we basically use the linear regression techniques, but there could be some other regression techniques as well. Apart from the linear regression, there could be non-linear regression techniques too. So whenever you want to find out the strength of the association or the relationship, so you can use the correlation coefficient R, and if you make it square, then you will get the coefficient which is known as coefficient of determination. And by means of R square, you can find out, or you can estimate, it is basically from 0 to 1, the R square, the value of R square you find from 0 to 1. And you can, it is a statistical measure that represents the proportion of the variance for a dependent variable, that how much variance of the dependent variable can be explained by the independent variable, that is represented actually by R square. Okay. So now we will consider a very important thing, which is known as confidence interval. The confidence interval is a range of values we are fairly sure our true value lies in. Okay. Just take a look at this example. We measured the heights of 40 randomly chosen men and get a mean height of 175 centimeters. We also know the standard deviation of men's height is 20 centimeters. So if you consider 95% confidence interval, we can also consider any other intervals like 99% confidence interval or 90% confidence interval or 85% confidence interval. So you will get the value of 175 centimeter plus minus 6.2 centimeter. Why this is 6.2? Because if you calculate, if you use this formula, x bar plus minus z into s by root n. Okay, so s you know, the standard deviation. So that is given as 20 by root n, the sample size that you know 40, and z is given by, for 95% confidence interval, the z value, that is 1.96. We have already talked about the z distribution. So in that distribution or standard normal distribution for 95% confidence interval, z is 1.96. Okay, what does it mean? It means that suppose if you consider this curve, suppose if this is z curve, then from minus 1.96 to plus 1.96, within this range, 95% of the data will lie. Under the total curve, 100% data. Under this range, minus 1.96 to plus 1.96, 95% data will lie. If you integrate it from minus 1.96 to plus 1.96, you will get the value of 95 or 0.95. Okay, so in this way, this we can calculate. So for 95% confidence interval, this is minus 1.96. So you put the value of 1.96 over here, and you will get the 6.2 centimeter. So this is basically the error term, 6.2 centimeter. So one side you will get 168.8, and on another side you will get 181.2. So this says the true mean of all men, if we could measure all their heights, is likely to be between 168.8 centimeter and 181.2 centimeter. So this is for 95% cases. Okay, but it might not be. The 95% says that 95% of experiments like we just did will include the true mean, but 5% won't. So you can understand that confidence interval is basically a range. This range, 168.8 to 181.2 centimeter, this range is represented by the confidence interval. And if we carry out this experiment for 100 times, it is likely that for 95 times, this range will include the true mean. But for 5 times, it may not include, it will not include, it is likely that it will not include the true mean. Okay, so this is the idea of confidence interval. Now, take a look at what is confidence level. A confidence interval is a range of values that is likely to contain an unknown population parameter that we just discussed. If you draw a random sample many times, a certain percentage of the confidence interval will contain the population mean. This percentage is the confidence level. Okay, for example, if we select 100 samples of same size, it is expected or likely that 95 of the confidence intervals obtained from them will contain the true mean or population mean. So this 95 is your confidence level. So significance level, there is also another terminology we'll find, alpha. Alpha is given as 1 minus confidence level. So if your confidence level is 95%, then the value of alpha will be 0.05, because both of them will give you the 100% or 1. Now take a look at the part of hypothesis testing. because in hypothesis testing, whenever you will carry out some hypothesis testing, you need to, the confidence level or the alpha value will be given in the problem, or you want to carry out your hypothesis testing based on uh, some specific confidence level or some specific significance level uh, you consider whenever you carry out some hypothesis testing. So in our daily life, significance is meant as big improvement. Okay. But the statistical significance indicates that we have evidence that the result we see in the sample also exists in the population. Statistical hypothesis testing is used to determine whether the result of a data set is statistically significant, or is the difference in the sample is the evidence of difference in the population. Okay. So whenever you do some hypothesis testing, we will see later on that there are two types of hypothesis you deal with. One is null hypothesis and one is alternative hypothesis or research hypothesis. That means you propose something, you give a statement, and you test that whether your hypothesis can be accepted, or whether your hypothesis can be accepted, or whether it will be rejected based on a specific significance level, or a specific alpha value that will be given. Okay. So it is basically a procedure by means of which you normally actually carry out whenever you do some hypothesis testing. You take or you collect the data from samples. You cannot take all the data from your population. So you take the data from your samples and you infer about your population. So this is actually known as, this is also called inferential statistics. And in this case, this is actually the objective of hypothesis testing. We will do such hypothesis testing later on, and we'll see that what we can conclude. Basically, we calculate some test statistic from the samples, and then we compare it with the tabulated value, and we take decision about our population. Okay, so this is what we do. So this is there are two types of tests you will find. That one is two-tailed test and one is one-tailed test. Okay. So a test that is conducted to show whether the mean of the sample is significantly greater than and significantly less than the mean of a population is considered a two-tailed test. Okay, a one-tailed test is a statistical hypothesis test set up to show that the sample mean would be higher or lower than the population mean, but not both. Okay. So in case of two-tailed test, suppose a mean has, you have found that you have collected data from samples, and you have seen that the mean has changed. Okay, so whether if you want to test whether my mean has just changed or not, then you can use the two-tailed test. But if you want to check whether my mean is higher or lower, so then you will use one-tailed test. Okay, two-tailed test. This is you can see here, this is the case of two-tailed test. The null hypothesis is given beta is equal to C. The alternative hypothesis is given as beta not is equal to C, or research hypothesis. But here in this case, you can see that null hypothesis is given as beta is equal to C. Alternative hypothesis is given whether beta is greater than C. Okay, so right hand side, it will consider only the right hand side, one-tailed test. But in this case, it will null hypothesis is beta is equal to C, and alternative hypothesis whether beta is less than or equal to C. So this is the case of alternative. This is the case of left-hand sided one-tailed test. We will see. We will give example and we will see later. So hypothesis testing provides a test statistic. A test statistic is a random variable that is calculated from sample data and used in a hypothesis test. Formula of test statistic will vary based on the type of test statistic. There are different types of test statistics based on different types of tests like Z test, T test, F test, chi-square test, etc. We should conduct tests depending upon the problem statement. Alternatively, you can also use p-value representing the probability that random chance could explain the result. So whenever you are carrying out, and there are two hypotheses, null hypothesis, which is represented by H0, and alternative hypothesis or research hypothesis, HA or H1. So, and H0 and HA are analyzed by determining the test statistic and p-value. In the modern era, test statistics and p-values can be easily computed by using different software. You just need to compare your test statistic with the cutoff statistic as found in particular table depending on the type of test, and obtained p-values with the given p-value in the problem. So here, when you are proposing some hypothesis, then you find out the test statistic and you can compare the test statistic with the tabulated value. That you can do. And alternatively, you can also compare the p-values. P-values means the probability values. You can also do to check whether you can reject your null hypothesis or not. Okay. So that the idea will be clear when we will deal with some particular problem. So here some p-values concept has been given. P-value can be used to test the hypothesis. P-value, observed significance level, is the probability of obtaining the observed results of a test statistic, assuming the null hypothesis is correct. Area in the tail of the test statistics in this case is actually p-value. And for to know in depth on p, you can check out this YouTube link. P-value in this case can be obtained from the Z table or from integration you can calculate. So just take a look at this small example. First, step one is define your hypothesis. Suppose your null hypothesis is given as mu is equal to 30 hours. Mean is 30 hours. And H1, your alternative hypothesis or your alternative hypothesis or research hypothesis is given as mu or is less than 30 hours. This is the claim. Alternative hypothesis means research hypothesis. That means you are proposing something new, and that is your claim. And you need to conduct, you need to define this, carry out this test at a level of significance alpha is equal to 0.05. So you can calculate, if you want to compare the mean in this case, you can use Z test. So that Z test statistic can be calculated using this. And your test statistic is equal to minus 1.46. Okay. So the p-value for this calculation, you will get from the software, you will get the p-value that is 0.0721. And you need to conduct the experiment at the level of alpha is equal to 0.05. So your p-value 0.721, it is here 0.721, and your level of significance, it is alpha is equal to 0.05. So 0.05 lies somewhere here. So your p-value, it is actually greater than the specified level of significance. So the null hypothesis cannot be rejected. Okay. The null hypothesis cannot be rejected, and you can conclude that there is not sufficient evidence to support the claim at the 5% level of significance. You can see here that this is the region of reject null hypothesis, and here this is the rejection of fail to reject null hypothesis or do not reject null hypothesis. So suppose, and this is actually, this represents the cutoff value. So if whenever you are calculating, whenever you have found your test statistic, you need to know that where my test statistic lie. If your test statistic lies in this particular region, then you fail to reject null hypothesis. But if your test statistic lies beyond this region, then you reject null hypothesis. Okay, so let's come to this slide. This is a very important slide. So here you can see that, so first, what is meant by actually null hypothesis? Null hypothesis means there is no difference, or the difference that you are finding from your sample, that is just due to sampling error. So if your p-value is less than alpha or 0.05, why 0.05? Because in majority of the cases, the alpha value, the hypothesis testings are performed at alpha is equal to 0.05 level. So if your p-value is less than alpha or 0.05, that means if your test statistic is greater than the cutoff value obtained from the table, then your null hypothesis is rejected. And you can conclude that the difference is significant, not null, and you can conclude that your difference is significant and it is not due to just the sampling error. Okay. So the difference in the sample is the evidence of difference in the population. And if your p-value is greater than or equal to alpha or 0.05, or your statistic is less than cutoff or obtained value, then your null hypothesis is not rejected. Difference could not be significant and could be due to just sampling error. The difference in the sample is not the evidence of difference in the population. So you can conclude that. So just how we can remember this thing. If we want to, if we consider this thing using p-value, it is easier if we consider the p-value rather than the statistic, because in case of p-value, you will ready-made, you can use that, because normally you conduct the hypothesis testing fixing the alpha value is equal to 0.05. Okay, so if you use p-value, then you can easily conclude the decision. And normally it says there is a very beautiful some lines. If P is low, null must go. Go means leave. That means your null hypothesis is null hypothesis must leave. That means there is enough evidence of your alternative hypothesis or research hypothesis. That means whatever you are proposing in your research, that might be true. But if your P is high, after conducting the hypothesis testing, if your P is high, then null must fly. That means your null hypothesis has not enough evidence to, your null hypothesis will be retained, and you cannot reject the null hypothesis, and there is not enough evidence of your research hypothesis or alternative hypothesis. Okay, so just take a look at this one. Here 95% 1.96 Z value you have taken for alpha is equal to 0.05. So the confidence level is 95%. That means 95% data will lie under 1.96 and here. Now suppose alpha value is, if alpha value is equal to 0.5, then for two-tailed it will be alpha by 2 is equal to 0.025 and this will be 0.025. Now suppose you have got from your result, you have got your test, you have got your P value is equal to 0.456. Okay, so P value is 0.456 means you need to consider the two part P value. It is considering the two for two tails. So for one tail it will be 0.228. Okay, so you can see here that this is the region of null will fly, that do not reject, and this is the region for reject null. So here the P value is less than the 0.05, 0.456. And alternatively, you can also see from this diagram that here this is 0.025. And here the P is up to this 0.0228. We are considering up to this. So it cannot enter into this region. So that's why we reject the null hypothesis. Okay. We reject the null hypothesis because here if it is more than 0.0228, it is less than 0.025. If you have the value of greater than 0.025, that means if it enters, if it crosses this line, if it enters this region, then only the null will fly. That means you cannot reject the null hypothesis. Okay. So now there are different tests, as I have said earlier. Z test for comparing two population means when population standard deviations are unknown. T test for comparing two population means when population standard deviations are unknown. For Z test you carry out when the population standard deviations are known, and T test you carry out when the population standard deviations are unknown. And F test for comparing two or more population variances. This is also, F test is also performed while we do ANOVA test. It is the ratio of variance of two samples. So take a look at one example. So we will give the example of F test. Okay, why F test? Because later on we will discuss about ANOVA, and For in ANOVA, we basically compare more than two means. So that's why we cannot use t-test. T-test is used for comparing just two means. But whenever you are conducting ANOVA, you cannot, if you want to compare more than two group means, then you cannot use t-test. You need to compare, you need to consider ANOVA. And in case of ANOVA, though our intention is to compare the mean, but in reality or in practice, we actually compare their variances and we use F-test. So that's why it is better to focus on F-test, because if we discuss on F-test, then our idea will be clear for the hypothesis testing, and it will also give you some intuition about the ANOVA as well. So that's why in my lecture, I have kept the F-test. Okay. So F-test, you can see that F statistic, it is given by S1 square divided by S2 square. Okay, and also you need to consider the degrees of freedom. In degrees of freedom, they are also considered. And S1 means sample variation divided by sample 1 variation and sample 2 variation. Okay, so let's take a look at this problem. Suppose you are a financial analyst for a brokerage firm. You want to compare dividend yields between stocks listed on the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. Now you collect the following data for New York Stock Exchange and for NASDAQ. Your sample number for New York Stock Exchange is 21. For NASDAQ, your sample size is 25. The mean for New York Stock Exchange is 3.27. And for NASDAQ, your mean is 2.53. And the standard deviation is 1.3 for New York Stock Exchange, and for NASDAQ, it is 1.16. So you would like to find out, this is your question or problem statement, is there a difference in the mean? Is there a difference between the variances, between the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ at alpha is equal to 0.05 level? So what will be your null hypothesis? Your null hypothesis will be sigma 1 square minus sigma 2 square is equal to 0. Sigma 1 square means the sigma is standard deviation, so sigma 1 square is the variance. So variance of New York Stock Exchange and the variance of NASDAQ. So if you subtract, it is 0. That means there is no difference between the variances of New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ in the population level. And your alternative hypothesis or research hypothesis is that New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ, they are not equal. There is a difference between variances if we consider the population. And you need to find out the result at alpha is equal to 0.05. So the numerator is degrees of freedom for New York Stock Exchange. You have taken the sample size of 21. So your degrees of freedom is N1 minus 1. Degrees of freedom is just, you are considering, if you subtract your samples 1 from your sample size, then you will get the degrees of freedom. So your degrees of freedom is 21 minus 1 is equal to 20. And your denominator is, it is given by degrees of freedom is equal to N2 minus 1. Okay. So 25 minus 1 is equal to 24. and it is represented in this way. So you may be now astonished to see that in case of when you are going to calculate the f is given by s1 square divided by s2 square. So only you are considering the variances. Okay, but you are not considering, there is no formula, the degrees of freedom we are actually not considering, but later on we will see that we will also consider the degrees of freedom. Okay, the degrees of freedom we also need to consider. We will see it later on ANOVA. And here you are getting the value of 1.256. Actually, this is, we need to consider the degrees of freedom. This will be S1 squared divided by degrees of freedom df1, and there will be df2, and you will get the value. So suppose for this example, you have done that and you have found the value of 1.256. Okay, so your F statistic is 1.256. Now you need to find out the cutoff value. That means F for 0.5 by 2. Why 5 by 2? Because in case of F distribution, you are actually, it is F distribution is always one-sided. Okay, F distribution, it is only one-sided. F distribution is one-sided. That's why you are dividing it by 2. And the degrees of freedom for 20,24, it is 2.327. This is the cutoff value that you can find out from your table. Okay, this is the table. This is the table. Okay, so here you can see that this is alpha is equal to 0.05, and the degrees of freedom is given. Degrees of freedom is there, 20 and 24. So 20 and 24, that value you can check out, and you will get 2.327. 20 and 24. So that value you can check, and that value is 2.327. So your so in this case, you can compare it with the value of 1.256. Here I think the value is not mentioned correctly, because here this is the 20 and 24. This is not representing it perfectly. This is 20.24. It is giving the value of 2.03 or something like that. So, but anyway, it is greater than the, it is obviously greater than the 1.256. So if, so your, this is the value, your cutoff value, suppose it is 2.327. So your cutoff value will be 2.327. And your F statistic is 1.256. So your 1.256 will lie somewhere here. So you cannot reject your null hypothesis. Okay. So the conclusion is that there is no evidence of the differences in variances for the population level at alpha is equal to 0.05. So now we end our lecture of basic statistics here. Thank you. You can see that we have actually modified our previous slides or PPT. That's why some parts we have added, I would just like to add it with the previous lecture. You can see that here the degrees of freedom, this definition we have included the number of independent values or quantities which can be assigned to a statistical distribution is known as degrees of freedom. Usually it is given by the sample size minus 1. Okay, so this is known as degrees of freedom. Then you can see that we have also included the definition of population, sample descriptive statistics, and inferential statistics. A population data set contains all members of a specified group, the entire list of possible data values. A sample data set contains a part or a subset of a population. Descriptive statistics describes data, for example, a chart or graph. Inferential statistics allows you to make predictions or inferences from the data. With inferential statistics, you take data from samples and make generalizations about a populations, which we do very often in hypothesis testing. Okay. Now we have here, you can see that we have included a diagram for discrete and continuous variable probability distribution. Here along y-axis for discrete variables, along y-axis we are representing the probability, and along y-axis for continuous variable we are representing the probability density. Here then you can see that we have included the part of chi-square distribution. The distribution of the chi-square statistic is called chi-square distribution. It is your chi-square statistic, and the distribution of these statistics is known as chi-square distribution. Chi-square statistic is given as chi-square is equal to n minus 1 into s squared by sigma square. N is the n is here the n random sample size is n, and s is the standard deviation, that means a square is the variance of the sample and sigma square it is the variance of the population. And the distribution of the chi-square statistic is called chi-square distribution. The chi-square distribution is defined by the following formula: y is equal to y0 into chi-square to the power nu by 2 minus 1 into e to the power minus chi-square by 2. So y0 is a constant that depends on the number of degrees of freedom. Chi-square is the chi-square statistic, and nu is equal to n minus 1 is the number of degrees of freedom, and e is constant equal to the base of the natural logarithm system, which is given as 2.718. Okay, so using this formula you can calculate the chi-square value of different degrees of freedom, and using this formula so you can easily calculate this curve you can construct. Okay, so you can see that it depends upon the chi-square distribution. It depends upon particular degrees of freedom. For 2 degrees of freedom, this type of curve you will obtain. For 4 degrees of freedom, you will obtain this sort of curve. From 10 degrees of freedom, you will find this sort of curve. Now F distribution. Chi-square distribution is very popular in statistics, and I will now describe about F distribution. The F distribution is related to chi-square because the F distribution is the ratio of 2 chi-square distributions with degrees of freedom nu1 and nu2. The F distribution is a probability distribution of the F statistic. In other words, it's a distribution of all possible values of the F statistic. The F distribution is a skewed distribution of the probability similar to a chi-square distribution, but where the chi-square distribution deals with the degrees of freedom with one set of variables, the F distribution deals with multiple level of events having different degrees of freedom. This means that there are several versions of the F distribution for different levels of degrees of freedom. So you can see these are different F distributions, and it depends upon more than 2 degrees of freedom. It depends upon 2 different degrees of freedom. You will get this sort of curve for different types of variation, and we can see it the example also that we told earlier, that the same thing, this example here, f is given by s1 square, the variance, and s2 square. This need not to be divided by the degrees of freedom, because the variance itself considers the degrees of freedom. So you need to find out the uh, critical value using the F table. So the earlier table that we used, that we removed, this is the new table and correct table. This is the degrees of freedom 1, this is the degrees of freedom 2. So 24 and 20, degrees of freedom 21 and 24, it was the 20, degrees of freedom 1 is 20, degrees of freedom for 24. So this is 20 and this is 24. So the value that you get, it is 2.33. So the same, almost same value, 2.327, that we have used for our calculation purpose.